My name's Jessie. I was supposed to walk across that stage, cap, gown, the whole thing. But my parents told the school I was unstable. Said I'd embarrass the family. So they banned me from my own graduation. No photos, no goodbye, no closure, just silence. Until one stranger looked me in the eye and said, "Welcome home, madam." And that's when everything broke open. The streets hadn't changed. Same worn-out pavement. Same houses with fading paint and overgrown yards. But somehow, they looked different. Smaller, duller. Maybe it was me who changed. As I turned into the old cul-de-sac, I felt my throat tighten. 2 years. 2 years since I'd seen this house. Since I packed up everything I owned in my beat-up Toyota and left for law school in another state. I had imagined this moment so many times, coming home, law degree in hand, standing taller than the girl who left. But now, sitting in the driver's seat, all I felt was unease. The last time I spoke to my mom, her voice had been cold, congratulating me on graduating like it was a formality, like I'd passed a driving test, not survived 3 brutal years and night shifts waitressing to make it through. I practiced my greeting out loud, smiling into the rearview mirror. "Hey, it's been a while." "Too fake. Good to see you." Hollow. I finally settled for silence and opened the door. I hadn't expected the driveway to be full. 3 extra cars. Not just mine. My stomach dropped. They'd invited people. This wasn't just me coming home. It was a dinner. A show. I stepped inside. Laughter floated from the dining room, until it didn't. The moment I crossed the threshold, it was like someone hit pause. "Oh wow," my sister said, flipping her perfect blonde hair over one shoulder. "The lawyer returns. Should we be nervous you'll sue us?" I smiled tightly, forcing my shoulders to stay back. "Only if you deserve it." Dad stood slowly, reached for a handshake like I was a client, not his daughter. I took it. His grip was firm, distant. Mom didn't even look up from arranging silverware. Her back to me, movements precise. I tried humor. "You guys throw a party every time I come back? Or just when it's awkward?" Silence. Then I saw it. An empty chair at the far end of the table. A white napkin folded neatly on the plate, embroidered with the word, "Welcome." No one motioned for me to sit there. Dinner smelled like roast beef and betrayal. Conversations swirled around me like I wasn't there. College plans for my niece. My sister's 3rd business attempt. Retirement talk. Nobody asked about law school. Nobody asked anything. I waited until the mashed potatoes made a second round before I spoke. "There's something I wanted to tell you all," I said, my voice steady. They didn't stop eating. They didn't even look up. "I'm pregnant." That stopped them. Dad dropped his fork with a sharp clang. The kind of sound that makes you flinch even if you saw it coming. "You're a disgrace," he said, eyes narrowing. "Not welcome here." My chest tightened. I swallowed hard. "You chose failure," Mom added, still not looking at me. "So sleep on the streets with it." I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just sat there, air heavy like fog in my lungs. Sound muffled like I was underwater. Their faces were calm, satisfied. All those years, all the late nights studying, the long shifts, the ignored birthdays, the empty chairs at ceremonies, they meant nothing to them. My sister leaned in, her voice low, cruel. "Guess that law degree didn't teach you much about choices." That was it, not the words, but the certainty in their eyes. Like they'd been waiting for this moment. To shut the door for good. I stood. "Thank you for the dinner." No one replied. I didn't take dessert. I packed in silence. 1 suitcase. Just essentials. I left my diploma on the kitchen counter, unframed. Uncelebrated. A paper reminder of everything they never saw in me. Outside, the night air wrapped around me like a warning. I opened the car door. Sat for a second. The napkin was still in my hand. "Welcome," it read, the only thing soft in that house. And even that wasn't meant for me. I whispered, "They don't get to define me anymore," and started the engine. As I reached the corner, my phone buzzed. Unknown number. "We need to talk. It's about your parents." The morning light in my apartment always made the walls look even more bare than they were. No curtains. 1 chair. My suitcase, still zipped, sat in the corner like it was waiting for me to give up and leave again. I lay there for a moment, staring at the ceiling, the words from last night circling like vultures. You're a disgrace. Sleep on the streets. They didn't just say it. They meant it. I sat up slowly, pulling the thin blanket tighter around me. The diploma on the wall hung crooked. I must have knocked it when I came in last night. I didn't bother straightening it. What was the point of success when the people who were supposed to be proud acted like you'd committed a crime? I whispered to no one. Maybe this is freedom. Ugly, cold, but at least it's mine. That's when the phone buzzed again. Same unknown number as last night. I stared at it for a beat, then answered. Hello? A pause, then a man's voice, cautious, polite, like someone stepping onto a frozen lake. Hi, is this Jessie? Yes. My name's Eli. I was the head waiter last night. I didn't say anything. He cleared his throat. I just wanted to say, I saw what happened. I'm sorry. I wasn't sure how to respond. So I didn't. He went on. I don't know if this matters now, but your parents weren't supposed to be there. At least, not according to the reservation. My pulse kicked up. What do you mean? The table, it was booked under your name. But the credit card and instructions came from someone else. I only realized afterward that something felt off. I waited. There was an envelope, addressed to you. I was told to give it to you, if things went badly. I sat up straighter. By who? I can't say. They didn't give a name. Just said it was important. That you'd understand. Where is it? I have it here, at the restaurant. If you'd like to meet, I can give it to you. I nodded, then realized he couldn't see me. Yes, I'll be there in an hour. The place looked different in daylight, emptier, colder, like all the polish had worn off overnight. Eli was waiting near the back, wiping an already clean table. The kind of nervous tick you pick up when you've seen too much. He handed me the envelope like it was glass. Gold paper, my name written on it in sharp cursive, unmistakably my father's hand. I'm sorry again, he said, not meeting my eyes. Everyone watched you like you were the intruder. I didn't answer. I just opened it. Inside, a set of old legal documents. Faded ink, the name Robert Hastings, my grandfather. And mine, listed as a partial heir to a property in Houston. A ranch, land. The room tilted. They told me he left everything to my aunt. That I'd been excluded because I was too young when he passed. I believed them. But here it was, in my hands. They lied. They didn't hate me for being pregnant. That was just the excuse. The timing. They wanted me gone before I could ever find this. Before I could claim what was mine. Eli cleared his throat. I probably shouldn't say this, but, your mom? I overheard her tell someone. Once she's out, it's clean. No more trouble. No more trouble. That's what I was to them. I folded the papers, tucked them into my bag, and looked at him. Thanks, Eli. I won't forget this. Back at my apartment, I spread the documents across the table. Each page like a puzzle piece. Signatures, dates, clauses. I read them not as a lawyer, but as a daughter who finally saw the knife in her back. And then I saw it. Inconsistencies. The dates didn't match. A signature on one document slanted differently. Someone had tampered with this. Forgery, plain and simple. I sat back, my mind clicking into place like a lock turning. They raised a lawyer. They should have known better. I didn't cry. I didn't shake. I smiled. Then I opened my laptop. New document. Title: Petition to reopen the estate of Robert Hastings. 2 days after I found the envelope, my apartment looked more like a war room than a home. Every surface was covered, old letters, photocopies, the faint smell of coffee gone cold. The blinds were half shut, letting in just enough light to make the dust visible in the air. It was quiet except for the soft hum of my laptop. I sat at my desk, scrolling through county records, case indexes, and inheritance filings. Every click felt like pulling at a loose thread I wasn't sure I wanted to unravel. I'd spent years learning the law to help others, never thinking I'd need it to defend myself from my own blood. When the world tells you you're powerless, I whispered, reading an old quote taped to my monitor. Learn the rules they use against you. But the rules didn't make sense now. The estate file number on my grandfather's will didn't exist in the county's system. I cross-checked, double-checked, even called an automated line that confirmed there was no record. The will I held, the one Eli had given me, wasn't filed anywhere. My pulse quickened. If it wasn't recorded, it meant someone stopped it from ever reaching public records. Someone had forged a trail that ended nowhere. Someone close. By noon the next day, I was driving toward Houston. A folder of documents buckled into the passenger seat like a silent companion. The familiar landmarks along the way. The gas station where Grandpa used to buy me lemonade. The stretch of oak trees shading the road, all looked smaller. Older, like memories shrinking to make room for something new. The county courthouse stood tall and tired, its clock frozen at 2:17. Inside, the marble floors echoed under my steps. I followed the records sign down a corridor until I spotted her, Mrs. Daniels. Her white hair was pulled back the same way it had been when I was 10 and she used to bring oatmeal cookies to the ranch. Mrs. Daniels? She turned, squinting before her eyes widened. Well, if it isn't little Jessie. You've grown into your mama's face. I smiled politely. I'm looking for my grandfather's will, Robert Hastings. It should have been filed here. Her smile faltered. Oh, she glanced at the file number and then at me. Honey, your daddy came in a few years back. Said you'd asked to have your name removed from the record. He had all the right paperwork. For a second, I didn't breathe. He said I wanted my name removed? She nodded, her expression apologetic. He said you didn't want to be involved in the inheritance. That you'd signed a release. I pressed my hand against the counter. Can I see the documents he filed? I'm sorry, sweetheart, she said softly. Those are sealed under a family privacy clause. Nothing I can do. The drive back was a blur. I didn't turn on the radio. Didn't even notice the rain starting. My father hadn't just lied, he'd made it official. I wasn't erased emotionally. I was erased legally. That night, I went back to work. If I couldn't get the will, I'd find what surrounded it. Public filings were still fair game. Property taxes, insurance policies, anything tied to the estate. I requested every document that bore the Hastings name. When the files came through, I scrolled line after line until one stopped me cold. A property transfer authorization. My name signed neatly at the bottom. The date, 2 years earlier. The problem? I'd been taking finals in New Haven that week. I stared at the signature. It was mine, and it wasn't. The same curve in the J. The same straight drop in the S. But too exact, too practiced. I opened a folder on my laptop containing my law school applications. Zoomed in on my signature there. And laid them side by side. The match was perfect. The kind only a tracing could make. I leaned back and laughed once. Sharp and humorless. Then a memory surfaced. My father's hand guiding mine when I was little. Take your time, Jess. A neat signature shows pride. He taught me how to sign so cleanly that one day he could use it against me. I whispered. He trained me for my own betrayal. I closed the file. My hands weren't shaking anymore. The shock had burned off. Replaced by something quieter. Something colder. I dialed my sister. She picked up on the second ring. Her tone too bright. Jessie, wow, you're calling? I figured you'd still be licking your wounds. I've been thinking, I said, keeping my voice level. Maybe we can talk, just us, about the will. The will? Her laugh was sharp, nervous. What's there to talk about? You already got your share. Don't act innocent. I froze. My share? She hesitated, realizing too late. You know what I mean. Actually, I don't, I said evenly, but thanks, that helps. Jess. Don't worry, I cut in. I'll just verify it. The silence stretched. I could almost hear her breathing. Shallow and fast. Then the call ended. I stared at the phone until the screen dimmed. Sometimes silence is the confession you were waiting for, I said quietly. I turned back to the desk. The documents looked different now, not as proof of what I'd lost, but as tools for what I could reclaim. I opened a new email. Professor Klein, I typed. You once told me the law is a shield and a sword. I think I finally understand what you meant. I attached the forged documents and hit send. Then I took a sticky note and wrote, "They took my name off a page. I'll put it back where it belongs." I pressed it to the wall above my desk. As I was shutting my laptop, another email appeared. No name, no address, just a subject line. "You're not the only one they erased." I opened the envelope again, tracing each crease as though they might hide a confession. Night still echoed in my mind. Sabine's laughter. The tilt of her head. That cold certainty in her tone. I replayed every word she said. Every camera flash. Every silence she forced. On my phone, I pulled up a family portrait from years ago. All smiling faces. Warm light, except me. I stood just off to the side. Tucked away. In that image, I was already invisible. I touched the screen. Fought a sudden ache. And typed her number. Maybe she doesn't know. Maybe she can help. My pulse thundered. I pressed send. My phone rang almost immediately. I steadied my voice as I spoke. "Sabine, I saw something. We need to talk." On the other end, a laugh. Low, dismissive. "Relax, Jessie. This isn't your business," she said. I swallowed, hurt and pushed. "Tell me why my name was removed." Her tone hardened. "Because we couldn't risk embarrassment. You never belonged here, Jessie." Truth hit like a punch. I paused, voice cold and quiet. "Then show me where my name ever was." She hung up. The sudden click left a ringing silence. Not 30 seconds later, an email landed in my inbox. Forwarded by Odessa Vale. Inside, the original wills registry list. In someone else's handwriting, but unmistakably annotated with my name. There it was, penciled amid legible entries. I scrolled, heart pounding. And then an old photograph. Scanned and posted. Sabine holding the property deed in a triangular frame. Her smirk clear in every pixel. The mask cracked wide open. Twist S3 revealed. They'd used a doctored email to swap names. Betrayal clenched my chest. This had been orchestrated far beyond mere family favors. My fingers trembled, but not with fear, with resolve. I didn't stop to think. I got into the car and drove to my parents' house. The afternoon sun burned low as I pulled up the driveway with that burning email on screen. Sabine answered the door, feigning surprise. "Jessie, what a shock," she said, voice calm. I held out my phone. The email waiting. "Why did you erase me?" She folded her arms, amusement in her eyes. "I gave you everything I thought you deserved." I stepped forward. "You erased my legacy and called it mercy." She raised a hand, face slick with control. "Don't make a scene." I smiled, quiet but seething. "If truth makes a scene, let's make it unforgettable." I turned and left before Mother could appear. My heart pounded, senses sharpened. In the car, I texted Odessa. "Meet me. Now." I whispered to myself. "They will see my name. Even if I have to raise the roof for them." Then my phone lit up. Notification. New document uploaded. Sabine's signature log. I didn't slam the car door. But I didn't ease it shut either. It stayed open longer than it needed to. As if part of me still expected someone to come after me. No one did. From where I sat, I could see the house windows lit in that familiar gold, like everything was fine. Shadows moved across the curtains. Voices murmured inside, but nobody looked outside. Nobody noticed I was still there. I held onto the steering wheel like it was the only solid thing I had left. The same fingers that had just pointed out a line now trembled without permission. I was breathing, but not really. I was remembering Mom's voice forgetting my birthday last year. The fake apology she gave 2 weeks later. Like a voicemail erased too late. That ache, the kind that doesn't show but sits in your chest for months. I turned the key. The car rolled down the driveway. And I forced myself not to look back again. But I didn't make it far before my phone pinged. A picture. From my mother's account. She was in the dining room. Holding a huge bouquet of lilies. That strained smile on her face. Next to her, on the table, a little card. Zoom in. It read, "Welcome home, dear daughter." My hands locked around the wheel. It was staged, the whole thing. For the neighbors, the internet, maybe the church bulletin. Not for me. Never for me. I stared at the image. My name, being used for sympathy points. 1,000 things rushed to mind, replies. Captions I could write. I even typed out, "You didn't even open the door when I stood outside." But I deleted it. No, that was their game. I wouldn't play it. I passed the grocery store I used to bike to. The school with the cracked swing where I fell and got 9 stitches. Those sidewalks had held me up once. But not anymore. They hadn't changed. They had controlled, shifted pieces behind my back, changed my name on paper. Called it love, called it protecting the family. I knew now, it wasn't about healing. It was about control. They staged that welcome, just so they could say, "See, she came back." I wasn't going back. I took a right off the main road, down a quieter street, pulled into a rest stop and parked under a tired oak tree. The hum of the engine stopped, and all I heard was my own breathing. I pulled out my journal, wrote without pause. You may have erased me, but I will build again. No big gestures, just a plan. Step 1. Hire a private investigator. Step 2. Refile every claim with proper evidence. Step 3. Write an open letter. Not for revenge, for clarity. That welcome napkin from the diner. I thought about it now. And Sabine's line, "Don't make a scene." Well, I would, on my terms. I messaged Darian, "I'm done waiting. Let's meet tomorrow." The sun was lowering behind the hills as I pulled back onto the road. And then, another ping. Message from Odessa, one line. "Check the property tax records. Sabine just paid in your name." The feeling wasn't relief. Not exactly. It was proof. I pulled over, opened my browser, typed with hands steadier than before. Sabine Baxter, full records. I didn't sleep long, but when I opened my eyes, I was wide awake. The edges of last night were still sharp. Mother's text with that photo staged for strangers. Sabine's signature showing up in public records like she owned my name. I rolled out of bed, made instant coffee with a hand that still felt a little unsteady, and pulled out the whiteboard I used when studying for the bar. One side still had old exam dates on it. I wiped it clean. New heading. What they took. What they think I won't find. I sketched it fast. Houston property. Forged deed. Timeline overlaps. Signature mismatches. My name removed from the program. Sabine's name added. Then I called Darian. "Meet me at your office," I said. "Bring caffeine and a clear head. We're not guessing anymore." He showed up 40 minutes later. Eyes wary, coffee in hand, coat wrinkled like he didn't sleep either. We didn't hug, just nodded. "I found something," I said, pulling up the screen. "They forged my signature. On my property. I'm done playing nice." He sat slowly, took a sip, then pulled out his phone. "You haven't seen this yet?" He handed it to me. It was a picture from the graduation dinner. My face blurred out. The caption read, "Family Scandal. 2023. The Baxter sister no one talks about." It had been posted an hour after I left their house. That quick. "They're watching everything now," he said quietly. "Someone's leaking what we do." I felt the heat crawl up my neck. Not fear, not fully. It was exposure, violation. I closed the browser, pulled up another. The paid county deed records. We searched Houston. Last name Baxter. There it was. The transfer happened during my second year in law school. Property originally under my name, transferred to Sabine. I never signed that. I never even saw it. I printed the deed, placed it beside my signed bar applications from that same year. The difference was slight, the loop on the J, the slant of the B. But it was enough. "This is it," Darian said under his breath. "This is your smoking gun." I looked him dead in the eye. "We go public tomorrow morning." He hesitated. "Jessie, Sabine will throw everything back. She'll spin this. Say you're bitter. Ungrateful. Lying." "I know," I said, "but I'm not fighting for their approval. I'm fighting for the record." We drafted a plan. Op-ed in the Austin Herald. Social post with date-stamped screenshots. Press release for a local segment. He'd reach out to Odessa for confirmation. Maybe even Blaze. He'd seen the signature once. This isn't revenge, I whispered, more to myself than him. This is accountability. That afternoon, I bought a domain, jessiebaxter.com. I uploaded the deed image, the forged signature, a scanned page from the whiteboard with my notes. The headline read, "What they took. What they think I won't find." Just as I hit publish, my phone buzzed. News alert. Houston property scandal. Baxter names under fire. I looked at Darian. He looked back. And just like that, war had started. I woke up before the sun. Phone buzzing nonstop beside me. The post had exploded overnight. Hundreds of notifications, retweets, comments, private messages. I sat up, wrapped my hands around a lukewarm mug of coffee, and stared at the screen like it could bite. The document, the signature, the truth I uploaded last night. There it was, dissected by strangers, debated by people I'd never met. Some called me brave, some called me bitter, others, worse. I didn't flinch, not this time. I opened my group thread and typed, "Odessa, Darian, Blaze, we go today." Then I combed through every attachment, the signature overlays, the deed, the will scan, labeled and time-stamped. They couldn't claim accident. They wouldn't get to rewrite this. I stared out the window for a moment longer. The morning quiet. Then I stood up and said out loud, just to hear it, "Let's begin." By 9 a.m., I was recording the video in my home office. Nothing fancy, just me in front of a plain wall, lit by sunlight, holding truth in my hand. I walked viewers through the chain, the forged signature, the transfer without notice, the so-called "welcome home" napkin used like a prop in their game. I spoke evenly, without theatrics, just fact. They didn't forget me, they erased me, but I kept the receipts. I hit upload. An hour later, a local news anchor read my name on live television. Jessie Baxter alleges her family altered legal documents to seize property and inheritance. I watched them cut to Sabine's pre-recorded statement. She wore lavender, always so poised. "Jessie thrives on drama," she said, smiling, "not truth." But they showed the signature comparison. Mine, the forged one, side by side. And the internet didn't buy her charm this time. The comments rolled in. "She looks nervous." Jessie's voice? Steady. "Something's off with Sabine." I didn't let it get to my head. But I let myself breathe. Then Odessa texted me, "I'll speak." She went on camera later that day. The director of the scholarship program said plainly that she remembered my name on the will. We had Jessie listed, until the day before filing. And Blaze? He posted the napkin. The actual napkin from the night of the dinner. "Welcome home," scrawled in thick black marker. His caption, "Staged forgiveness isn't forgiveness." People noticed. Sabine's camp pushed back hard. Anonymous accounts posting my bar exam score, whispering that I was unstable. I saw right through it. And I said it in my next post, "When truth speaks, rumor trembles." I didn't wait for their next move. I went live. A virtual press panel, split screen, Sabine on one side, me on the other. She tried to smile, tried to shift blame, said I was tearing the family name apart. I kept my tone level. "You tore it when you wrote me out." We didn't scream, we didn't cry, but the air between us cracked wide open. The moderator pulled up the original will, a clear line showing my name, before it was scrubbed. Then he played a recording of the family's lawyer contradicting himself about the signature timelines. Viewers saw the trap snap shut. Sabine looked down. And I looked straight ahead. Once the stream ended, I closed my laptop and sat still. Silence hit like a wave. I opened my browser and watched as the headlines refreshed. Baxter dynasty shaken by internal dispute. Forgery claims gain ground. My phone lit up with names I hadn't seen in years. A senator's aide, an old professor, a corporate firm I once clerked for. Support came quickly, too quickly. Maybe. A thought crept in. Had I pushed too far? Had I made it too public? Too personal? And then I saw the latest headline. Will Baxter Mansion be forfeited? I leaned back, stared at the ceiling, and whispered, "This isn't over." I got there before anyone else. The Houston property stood under the early sun like a polished lie. Banners stretched across the front gates. Gold lettering spelling out, "A Baxter Legacy." Below that, Sabine's name gleamed as if it had always belonged there. It hadn't. I could almost hear her rehearsing her lines somewhere behind those walls, perfecting her smile for the cameras. I took one long breath, hands gripping the folder that held my proof. My chest was tight but steady. This is where I either become real, I murmured, or vanish again. The grounds buzzed as reporters arrived. Tripods clattered, microphones tested. The air was full of that nervous, artificial politeness people use when they expect drama but pretend they don't. I stepped up to the podium to go over my speech once more. Facts, dates, signatures. The truth was clean and simple. It just needed to be spoken out loud. Then I saw it. A young man from the PR team tugged a velvet cloth off the wall of legacy. Behind it, mounted for everyone to see, was a portrait of Sabine. Her grin wide, the property deed in her hands. The brass plate below read, "Heir apparent." That wall used to have a space reserved for me. My grandmother's promise. My photograph that never made it there. The sight of it stung more than I expected. I felt the weight of everything, every silence, every correction, every "maybe next time" I'd swallowed over the years. I walked straight to the podium, ignoring the startled looks. "That picture," I said, voice even, "is a lie." The chatter stopped. All the attention, every camera, shifted to me. I pointed toward the photo. "That legacy you're celebrating was stolen." Gasps rippled through the crowd. Sabine, standing near the front row, froze with a champagne glass halfway to her lips. "Jessie," she said, almost sweetly, "this isn't the time." "It's exactly the time," I said. "You can hang your picture on the wall. But that doesn't make it true." I reached for the microphone, and it cut out. Static, then silence. Someone had killed the feed. Before the awkward pause could settle too deep, Blaze stepped out from the side of the stage. Calm as ever, he carried a spare mic, plugged it in, and handed it to me. Leaning close, he said under his breath, "You're louder than they expected." That small line steadied me. When my voice came back through the speakers, it was clear and strong. "For those who don't know," I began, "my name is Jessie Baxter. And before you listen to another story about family honor, you should hear mine." The crowd leaned in. I opened my folder and took out a small USB drive. "This contains the original will of Evangeline Baxter, our grandmother." The document was stored, forgotten, or hidden, for decades. But not deleted. A technician connected the drive. The big screen flickered to life. And then, my name appeared. Printed clearly in the clause. "Marisol Baxter shall retain half share of the estate." A wave of murmurs rolled through the crowd. Some people clapped their hands over their mouths. Others reached for their phones. I watched Sabine's face twist, shock first, then calculation. "That's fabricated," she snapped. "No," I said quietly. "It's notarized and timestamped, dated before you were even born." The projection changed. 2 signatures side by side. Mine, and the forged one from the altered deed. The differences were subtle, but there, slant, spacing, pressure, anyone could see it. Sabine tried to speak, but her voice cracked. "You're destroying the family's reputation. You destroyed it when you erased your sister." I said, "All I'm doing is putting the truth back where it belongs." I turned back to the screen. Evangeline Baxter built this family on honesty. And honesty doesn't need applause. It just needs air. For a few seconds, everything stopped, like the entire lawn was holding its breath. Then the flashes started. Reporters shouting questions. Guests whispering. One older woman near the back wiped her eyes. Sabine backed away, shaking her head. "This is slander." "It's history," I said, my voice calm, certain. "You can bury it, but you can't kill it." And then I said the line I had been holding inside for years. "You erased me legally. But you will never erase me morally." The reaction was instant. Applause from one side, murmurs from another, and the sharp click of cameras capturing what couldn't be undone. Sabine turned sharply, her heels digging into the grass, and stormed off the stage. Her entourage followed, whispering orders, faces pale. I stayed right where I was. I didn't chase. I didn't gloat. I just let the noise rise and fall around me until someone from the press called out, "Ms. Baxter, what happens next?" I looked out at the crowd. "This," I said, "is just the beginning." As people pressed in, reporters, old friends, strangers, some tried to shake my hand. Others just nodded quietly, understanding something deeper than words. The truth had weight, and for once, it wasn't crushing me, it was lifting me. When I finally made it back to my car, the sun was beginning to set behind the estate. I sat for a moment, breathing. My hands were steady now. My phone buzzed on the passenger seat. One message, no name attached, just words that said everything. Estate lawsuit filed. Baxter family estate is frozen pending jury review. I closed my eyes, let the quiet sink in. For the first time in years, the silence didn't feel like exile. It felt like peace. "They can try to erase history," I whispered, "but they'll never erase me." The air in Asheville carried a quiet I hadn't known in years. Mornings came with the smell of soil and rain, the kind that made the mountains look like they were breathing. I sat in the small garden behind my house, watching the sunlight fall through the trees. And for once, I didn't feel the urge to check my phone. The lawsuit had ended 3 weeks ago. The court revoked Sabine's claim, awarded partial restitution, and placed most of the old Baxter property under public trust. It wasn't the victory I'd once imagined, but it was closure enough. My name, once buried under forged signatures and gossip, now stood clean again in the records. When the ruling came, I didn't cry. I just sat still and listened to the silence that followed the judge's words. That silence felt heavier than applause, but kinder. A letter arrived that morning. The envelope bearing a familiar crest, the university I'd once been expelled from before graduation day. My stomach tightened as I slid it open. Inside was an invitation, an official ceremony to honor Evangeline Baxter and me as co-dedicates of a new scholarship for women in ethics and community leadership. I ran my fingers over the embossed seal. The same institution that once erased me was now asking for my presence. I almost laughed at the irony. I placed the letter on the table and let my eyes drift over the hills. It took them 20 years to see what my grandmother already knew. I said quietly. Later that evening, I sat by the fireplace rereading the invitation. My instinct was to refuse, to let the past stay buried where it hurt less. But a line from Maya Angelou came to me like an echo, still. Like dust. "I'll rise," I decided then. I would go, not for them, for the girl I was, who never got to stand on that stage. The day of the event came with that same crisp calm only autumn brings. The university's courtyard looked smaller than I remembered, though the people seemed bigger, or maybe I just wasn't looking up at them anymore. As I walked through the main hall, people turned, whispering my name, some with awkward smiles, others with genuine warmth. Then I heard a voice behind me. "You're really her daughter, huh?" I turned, startled. Tobias stood there, older, but unmistakable, the same steady eyes from years ago, the same calm tone that once made me feel seen when I was invisible. Beside him stood a teenage girl with freckles and curious eyes. "This is Jess," he said, named her after the strongest girl I knew in college. For a second, I forgot how to breathe. The girl smiled shyly. "Dad said you changed how he thought about family." I swallowed hard, forcing a smile. "Your dad was one of the few who didn't need convincing." We walked together into the auditorium. The stage held 2 portraits, mine and my grandmother's. Seeing them side by side made something inside me unclench. The dean began speaking about integrity, restoration, and truth. Words that once sounded like hypocrisy now felt possible. When my name was announced, I stepped forward. Applause rose like a tide, not thunderous, but steady, grounded. The plaque unveiled beneath the scholarship title read, "The Evangeline and Marisol Baxter Fellowship for Ethical Leadership." For the first time, I didn't feel like I was reclaiming something. I felt like I was giving it back, to the world. To the people watching. To that younger version of me who'd once been told to disappear. That night, back in Asheville, I hosted a small dinner. Blaze came, still sharp-tongued but softer around the edges. Tobias brought Jess, who asked endless questions about truth, choices, And courage. Around the table, laughter came easily. We didn't talk about the lawsuit or the inheritance. We talked about building things that last, gardens, kindness, trust. For years, I said, setting my glass down, I thought being seen meant fighting louder. Maybe it's not about that at all. Maybe being seen just means building something worth looking at. Jess leaned forward. Can I see what started it all? I nodded and brought out my old journal, worn, half burned around the edges. Pages filled with the handwriting of a younger me trying to make sense of betrayal. I opened it briefly, then handed her a blank one. Write your truth early, I told her, before someone else tries to write it for you. Later that evening, when everyone had gone, I stepped outside. The air was cool, stars scattered like ash across the dark sky. I sat back in the same chair from that morning and played the voicemail I'd saved years ago, the one from the waiter who once greeted me at the mansion. His voice was warm, simple. People like you don't wait for welcome. You make places better just by being. I smiled, not the kind that hides pain, but the kind that makes peace with it. I looked toward the distant hills, the lights of Asheville flickering below. My voice, barely above a whisper. I was never the girl they imagined. But I became exactly the woman I needed to be. Inside, the letter from the university sat next to a new one that had arrived that afternoon, from an editor in New York. Have you ever thought of publishing your story? It read. For a moment, I let the question hang in the air. Then I folded the letter and set it on my desk beside the journal. Maybe the next chapter wasn't about the past at all.